好，唔該晒，多謝晒 Winnie。咁我首先再介紹下自己啦，同埋 Michael 啦。Michael 一陣再介紹多啲啦，我自己介紹自己先啦。咁我係 Cindy 啦，3年前咧就移民嚟咗溫哥華啦。咁我喺香港咧一路咧都係做大學嘅工作嘅，咁一路都係從事教育啦。咁嚟到咧揾工都係有啲困難嘅。咁咧其實就係 Michael 咧就請咗我啦，所以我哋兩個其實都係 VCC 度做，不過而家就唔同咗部門啦。第一個 contract 咧我就喺佢個部門度做，咁之後我就 take 咗個 break， 咁而家我就去咗continuous learning， 即係持續進修學院嗰度做啦。所以今日嘅講嘅嘢咧都同我嘅工作有啲咁多嘅關係啦，好少啦。咁你介紹咗之後，我再講個 rundown。
Okay, so I'm one of those that will speak in English, so please bear with me. So as Cindy says, I work at Vancouver Community College. I was also an immigrant, like all of you. I actually first came to Canada as a student, so I know that some of you are here on student visa. So that was how I came to Canada a long time ago. And then one thing led to another. So anyway, eventually I call Canada my home, which of course is a lovely place. But we do know that Canada poses some challenges to newcomers in terms of finding employment, settling down and all that. So hopefully today, this workshop will give some insights for you, but it's a journey, right? So today we have other speakers who will share their personal experience. And of course, we have our wonderful guests from the Vancouver Public Library to talk about some of the services that they can offer to newcomers. Yeah, so let's get started.
好，咁我同 Michael 就分開有2個部分嘅。我第一個部分咧就講一啲比較我自己個人嘅經歷啦，喺嗰3年裏面。咁啊 Michael 就會講翻一個成個 macro 喺溫哥華或者係加拿大，如果想持續進修嘅有一啲咩嘅途徑啊，或者係嗰啲 credit 係點樣計，咁佢就會負責第2個部分㗎啦。咁首先講下我自己個部分先。咁我就有4個喺3年裏面4個個 learning 我學咗嘅。第一個咧就 stay hungry， 咁其實就係真係Michael 睇個 PowerPoint 嘅時候咧就問我係咪有個寓意㗎？即係好似 Steve Jobs 咁 stay hungry，stay foolish。其實唔係嘅，我就真係 stay hungry 嘅。即係你見到我所有呢啲淡仔嘅米線啊、黐飯啊、椰子煲雞湯，所有都係我嘅作品嚟嘅。咁我覺得我係好犀利嘅，因為我以前係一個唔識煮嘢食嘅媽咪。咁嚟到咧，其實咩芒果呢個我整過俾 Michael 佢哋食嘅，就係許留山嘅芒果小丸子。咁我自己點解呢度有呢個好大嘅心得咧？或者係點解 stay hungry 咧？其實喺唔識煮嘢食嘅時間裏面咧，我係睇咗好多 YouTube 片。我發覺原來 YouTube 咧係咩都有得學㗎。揸車咧我都好試下㗎，雖然考到牌咧，其實都即係轉左轉右都唔係好有信心㗎。咁原來 YouTube 咧係有晒我哋溫哥華考試嘅路線㗎，仲有好多唔同嘅 video 可以睇嘅。咁所以我第一個 lesson 咧即係醫飽自己個肚啦。我覺得我哋新移民過嚟，其實係好多 survival skills 咧都唔識㗎啦。好多嘢都係要自己做啦。譬如揼個櫃啦 ，Edward 一陣唔知會唔會分享，佢話佢係成世人冇砌過咁多嘅家私嘅，嚟到都即係學識晒啦。咁我覺得成個嘅 spirit 咧就真係要去好好睇下自己有啲咩需要，最 basic 嘅 needs 去學習咗之後，再諗下有咩係可以同我哋嘅就業有關啦。咁所以呢個就係我第一個 lesson 啦。仲有呢個好緊要嘅，點解我影咗咁多相咧？其實我就會 show off 晒喺我啲 social media 嗰度，原來就呃 like 啦，完啲 like 人哋讚我嘅時候，我又覺得哇好充滿咗信心，就會繼續再去整。所以我覺得呢個咧就一定要分享嘅。第2個 lesson 咧。就係 curious， 呢個就真係幫到我揾工㗎啦。頭先其實阿 Winnie 一開始就做咗個 land acknowledgement， 咁我一嚟到咧，其實我就參加咗好多唔同嘅活動嘅。一開始佢哋都會做一個 land acknowledgement， 咁我以前都喺度讀書嘅，就冇呢一樣嘢嘅。咁我就諗係咩嚟嘅咧？咁我就開始去 Google 啦，喺度揾啦。咁我係3年前嚟到嗰陣時咧，就啱啱係有一個新聞，就係話個 residential schools 就揾到好多小朋友嘅屍體嘅。 咁係好大件事啦。咁我又咁係究竟係咩一回事咧？咁我又再喺度揾好多原來呢度而家係講緊 Indigenous 啊、reconciliation 啊個 truth 係點樣？咁我就自己揾咗好多，即係好有興趣去睇啊。咁點知原來就幫到我揾到我第一份 VCC 嘅工啦。咁阿陣 Michael 可能會講，可能唔講啦。咁佢有同我分享點解係請我嘅。咁當然有好多其他嘅因素啦，因為我而家都係做緊教育，我以前都係做緊教育啦。咁有一樣嘢其實 HR 佢係喺個 panel 裏面嘅。咁佢就問我其實我一個 newcomer 嚟到。即係有啲咩覺得自己係一個 strength， 有咩地方自己做得不足，咁我就咁其實 strength 我有好多啦，即係以前好多嘢都係 transfer 過到嚟噶嘛，嗰啲 soft skills 啊，即係點樣去做一啲課程，其實我都識噶嘛。但係一啲即係一啲新嘅嘢就係 truth and reconciliation 啊，咁我就真係冇乜了解，我就自己去做咗好多嘢。咁我咁樣答完之後，佢覺得哇好 impress 喎，原來我 as 一個 newcomer 對自己嘅不足都有。即係其實唔係不足嘅，我諗大家其實嗰樣嘢都係新嘅，咁但係我有留意呢樣嘢，咁我諗呢一個都係佢哋請我嘅其中一個原因啦。咁所以我覺得curious 係好緊要啦，即係周圍去探索側邊嘅事物。第三樣咧就係呢個我亦都係好深嘅感受嘅。咁我一陣有一張 slide 咧係 show 晒我學過嘅 cert， 我諗嗰度可能有20-30張啦，呢3年裡面。咁但係我 so far 應該都係未俾過錢去參加呢啲所有嘅 training。第一咧就係 on the job training 啦，即係 VCC 有一啲啲嘅唔使錢啦。另外咧其實喺 social media 嗰度其實佢會偷聽我哋講嘢噶嘛。free training 咁你之後即係或者你打 mosaic 之後就會成日彈啲 mosaic 出嚟噶啦嘛。咁我又幾中意喎，因為就係講咗呢個字，佢成日彈一啲唔同嘅嘢出嚟，我就發覺咦原來喺加拿大有好多 funded 嘅 training 都係唔使錢，甚至我有一個 training 佢係俾埋錢我去讀嘅。咁我諗都要睇翻大家你哋係咩行業咩興趣啦。我自己就好中意啲 community engagement 同埋 social innovation 嘅 area， 因為我以前嘅工作都係呢啲。咁我嚟到咧，我有個 course 喺 SFU 嗰度讀嘅，佢係under business school 有個叫 Radius 嘅地方，佢有個 lab 係專係 support 一啲 immigrant 嘅，咁就讀咗一個 certificate。咁為期幾個月啦，咁亦都可以有一個免費嘅 retreat 去咗3日2夜，就同其他世界各地即係嚟到溫哥華嘅新移民，裡面亦都係有一啲 international student 嘅。咁佢係即係冇話一定要係 PR 或者 citizen 都讀到嘅。咁因為佢係好 support 呢個 equity， 好驚即係因為有啲人係冇錢而讀唔到咧，所以佢係會有一啲 subsidy 俾翻我哋嘅。咁我應該個 course 我讀咗2次嘅，咁可能。如果你當用賺錢嘅 concept 就俾咗1000幾蚊我咯，咁就即係免費讀書，有張 cert， 亦都有少少嘅生活津貼咁樣啦。咁除咗呢啲 free training 咧，即係呢啲就係一個 cert 嘅 course， 一個大學咁樣啦。咁會有好多唔同嘅細型㗎啦，譬如喺 mosaic 咧，其實我係 mosaic 嘅 fans 嚟嘅，佢有好多唔同嘅 program 我都有參加啦。我一嚟到咧就係參加咗個 career mentorship， 咁就係因為我係做大學啊嘛，我就話我一定要一個 UBC 或者 Simon Fraser 嘅人嘅，佢真係揾到個 UBC 嘅人做我嘅 mentor， 就係同咗我傾偈好幾次咁樣啦。咁之後佢亦都有另外一個 program 咧係我近期參加嘅，就係俾一啲新移民啦，或者係一啲 new 即係移民啦，去 serve on 一啲 board 嘅。咁就係可以唔同嘅 board 啦，你可以講環保啊，可以講移民啊，可以講生態發展啊，咁樣所有嘢都係可以㗎啦。咁亦都係做咗幾個月嘅 training， 亦都係免費有張 cert， 咁亦都係好好嘅。即係其實除咗你識咗嗰個 knowledge 之外，你仲會識到好多人咯。咁呢2個咧就係近期嘅，不過我都係冇報道嘅，因為都冇時間。第一個咧就 Simon Fraser 有一個。即係你哋可以繼續留意有冇嘅，有個 community capacity building 嘅，又係為期6個月一個 cert program。其實上第2個咧類似嘅咧就要俾幾千蚊㗎啦，但係呢個唔知點解就係完全免費㗎啦。咁 UBC 亦都有啲 cert 嘅 program， 亦都係免費嘅。譬如呢一個啦，就 Autism Neurodiversity， 咁佢就一個 online 嘅 program， 好似係10個8個鐘嘅就呢個就短好多啦。咁所以我會建議大家即係。去睇下啦，有冇一啲免費嘅課程可以，同埋咧 去第一次免費課程就好緊要嘅，我覺得，因為你去咗一次咧就識咗一班人啊嘛，咁佢哋就會 share 好多呢啲免費嘅課程出嚟㗎啦。好，最後一個第4個 tips 啦，我覺得亦都係最緊要㗎啦，就係 make 一啲 connections 啊。咁我3年前嚟到，其實我係唔會玩 LinkedIn 嘅，因為以前唔使揾工㗎嘛，只有工嚟揾我哋啦，我哋唔會去揾工啦，咁就唔會搞呢啲嘢嘅。咁嚟到都有少少努力嘅，即係每個月出一個 post 咁樣啦。咁我最先出嘅時候咧，即係你如果喺個 LinkedIn 你會睇到個 demographic 㗎嘛，咁所有都係香港我以前啲朋友㗎。咁其實近期咧已經係去到一大半咧，已經係變咗溫哥華嘅人。即係加拿大或者溫哥華嘅人，咁呢個我覺得係好重要嘅，因為喺個 LinkedIn 上邊佢哋會 share 好多唔同嘅 jobs 嘅 opportunity 啦，或者其他 knowledge 你哋都可以。同埋咧，我係真係好似我諗冇識都有教嘅，係會做 informational interview 噶嘛。咁我都有做好多，最先嚟嘅時候，而家揾到工就冇做啦。咁所以呢個 making connections 我覺得都係其中一個最大嘅 tips 啦，即係喺 LinkedIn 嗰度識人啦，同埋參加啲 training program 咧係更加好，因為大家都係一齊幾個月㗎嘛，每個禮拜都見面，咁亦都係嚟自各行各業，同埋都係大家情投意合啦。即係如果去得嗰個 training，即係大家嘅興趣都係差唔多，都係好啱傾嘅。咁所以呢一個都係我第4個嘅得着啦。咁呢啲就係我幾十張 cert 咁樣啦。咁有啲咩用咧？攞咗呢啲 cert，其實我又冇話帶過去見工嘅。咁但係 interview 其實係會問你識啲咩嘅，所以咧我又會綜合咗。咦，未去到呢個添，就係呢個我覺得係對點樣對工作有幫助，就係4樣嘢。第一就係 profession 啦。譬如我係讀咗個 career development practitioner， 當我去揾嗰啲工，佢其實會問我啲 career theories 係點啊嘛，咁對我 profession 一定有關係啦，就唔係攞張 cert 出嚟嘅，咁佢會問你噶嘛。Vocation 咧，我覺得呢個第2樣嘢咧都問得幾多嘅，就係頭先譬如 indigenous， 又因為我係做教育噶嘛 ，indigenous 啦、diversity 啦、equity 啦，你識啲咩啊？其實我識都係好皮毛啦，都係嚟咗3年。咁但係我就我又讀咗啲 cert 啦，就學咗 intersectionality 啊咩，就答翻嗰啲學咗嘅嘢出嚟啦。咁佢哋通常我就會覺得岌晒頭咁樣，又好似過咗關咁樣咯喎。咁所以呢一個係第2個得着啦。第3咧，我覺得係對我嚟講係尤其緊要，就係 show 自己個 passion 啦。頭先我都會講，我係中意 social innovation 同埋個 community capacity building 噶嘛。咁其實我一講話我讀咗 SFU 嗰個 cert， 咁佢哋其實都會好 impress。因為都係證明我係投入咗我嘅 energy 啦，我嘅時間同埋我個 effort 去做。咁最後尾就係我頭先講嘅呢啲 promotion 啦。通常你一整呢個嘢咧，咩 celebrate a new certificate 咧，哇，好多人就會，即係如果你有好多 friends 咧，就會呃到好多 like 㗎啦。咁亦都俾人感覺到，哇，你都好持續進修喎。因為我覺得喺呢一度加拿大尤其是咩都要張 cert 㗎啦。即係我以前喺 Michael 嗰個部門嗰度做，就做一個叫 Building Service Worker Program。咁其實係咩咧？就 train 一啲 janitor， 即係清潔啊、抹玻璃。咁呢一個行業咧，都會要有張 cert 咧，先係可以令到你更加增加嗰個競爭力啦。好啦，咁我最後2張 slides 啊，咁我就將我頭先噏嘅一大堆嘢咧，就係 summarize 咗我自己嘅心路歷程啦。咁我學咗啲咩咧？即係呢度係少少嘅啫，就煮餸啦、煮餸啦、揸車啦、indigenous 啦、EDI 啦，呢個同我嘅其實做嘅工作係好有關嘅。career development practice 啦，呢度都係有一張 cert 嘅。咁同埋 community engagement 啦。咁我有 formal 同埋 informal 嘅方法去學啦。formal 我就真係去參加個 course， 有張 cert 啦。咁但係除此之外咧，其實我自己都會同人傾偈啦。我覺得同人傾偈係會比我有陣時讀書更加了解得多個 topic 啦。同埋睇 YouTube 我都睇得幾多。除咗睇韓劇咧，咁我都有陣時會學習下嘅。咁頭先個 take away 就我一啲 cert 真係可以攞走啦。咁我真正我覺得可以 take away 嘅咧，就係好多嘅 friendship 同埋個 connections。呢度可能整得淺色過頭就睇唔到啦。咁每一個 training 其實去上都會有幾十人噶嘛。咁裡面一定都有幾個你可以交到下朋友嘅人啦。咁就慢慢 build up 呢個 network 咯。好，咁我個部分就喺度啦。咁 before 交俾 Michael 之前咧，其實頭先我就講咗我自己響以往嘅3年學習咗啲乜嘢，點樣學習啦。我哋為咗你哋都認識下大家啦，咁亦都想你哋咧都做一個類似咁樣嘅介紹啦。 就係用1分鐘時間諗下，如果你未來嗰幾個月啦，或者1年有啲乜嘢你哋係想 through take 一個 course 去學到一樣嘢，或者係用一啲 informal 嘅方法，譬如係自己睇書啊、睇 YouTube 片啊去學習啦。咁你可以同一啲你唔識嘅人啦，坐隔離嗰個可能你識啦，你就揾一個你唔識嘅人介紹自己嘅名啦，跟住有啲咩興趣啦，同埋嚟緊嗰個 training 係想學啲乜嘢，同埋點解要學。咁大概幾多分鐘啊？
而家幾點鐘？
而家就搭7，未夠搭7。5分鐘。Five
minutes。
好，5分鐘。
So you get what's formal and what's informal, right? So formal is that you actually go to take a class, where basically, and then informal is you can learn on your own. Yeah? So yeah, just find another person, just talk to them about what you want to learn. Yeah? If you want to stretch your leg, just get up and move around. Yeah. We'll tell you when time is up. Okay, so it's so great to see that you're talking to one another. So hopefully, you know, even just this little conversation, right, is sometimes very helpful, because you never know. Cindy was talking about making connections. And, you know, I think we all know that for newcomers, whatever the channels are, that's probably the most challenging, right? Because you don't know anyone, or you may know a few, but you don't have a big network, and you lost that network after you've left Hong Kong. So I'm just going to take 10-15 minutes to introduce you to the public colleges and institutes in Canada. I'm not going to touch on universities, because we thought, for most of you at least, who come from Hong Kong, you're probably more familiar with the idea of university, but maybe not as much about colleges and institutes. So I'm going to just give a broad overview of that. So can you handle this? Because I can't see it from this side. Okay, so this slide is just meant to give you a very broad overview of colleges and institutes in Canada, because I don't know if any one of you may move to other parts of Canada, right? So one big difference between Canada and Hong Kong, I think, is that this is a gigantic country. So, you've come here in Vancouver, but you may move elsewhere, even just within BC. Right? This is not the only place that you can choose to build your future life or future career. There are many other possibilities. If you, at this moment, if you cannot name all of the Canadian provinces and territories, then maybe do some homework, just so that you feel that you're in a bigger country now, right? So there are over 200 public colleges and institutes across Canada. And when I say public, that means these institutions are funded by government. Right? Now, you still have to pay tuition, because the government funding is not enough, right? But it's publicly funded. So that sets them apart from the so-called private colleges, right? So the private colleges don't get any funding, and their tuition would be 5, 6, or more times higher than those funded colleges, right? And if you're an international student, some of you I know are here as international students, so you know what I mean. Even for publicly funded colleges, you're paying way more than the Canadians or PRs, right? Sometimes it gets very confusing, because these so-called colleges and institutes, they come in different names. Now, most of them would be called something college, or like my college, it would be called Vancouver Community College, right? But most of the colleges would just be college. So an example is in Toronto, there's a college called George Brown College. In Alberta, there's Bow Valley College, or Northwest College, things like that. But there are also institutions that are not called colleges, and they're called Institute of Technology. So here in Vancouver, well, technically Burnaby, have you heard of an Institute of Technology? So can you yell out that name? Yes, BCIT, right? So BC Institute of Technology. Now these institutes of technology, they usually focus on, like they cover the whole province. So they're supposed to support all the students from all the, right? So that is why it's called BC IT, whereas my college is Vancouver Community College. But of course, students can come from anywhere. And some are also called polytechnics. Now, you're from Hong Kong, so you probably know that in the past, there were City Polytechnic. Of course, now it's a university. And there was Lei Gong Hai.
Polytechnic.
Just Polytechnic, Hong Kong Polytechnic, right. And of course, now it's also a university, right? But in Canada, there are still some polytechnics, and some of them have also become universities over time. And if any one of you ever consider going to Quebec, does anyone speak French here? Thank you. Are you from Quebec?
No.
No, okay. So how did you learn French?
I took French immersion from grade 7 to grade 12, and then I lived in Quebec, and then I lived with French speakers for a lot of years, and then I worked in French charities.
Wow, wonderful. So you're fully fluent in French. Yes.
Oui.
So, well, I'm not calling on her to talk about CJAP, but so that's the name of these kind of college equivalent, right? In Quebec, then they're called CJAPs. So anyway, just different names. So I thought I would just help you kind of see these names, just in case, on social media or on whatever, information, you see these names, right? Then you kind of understand what they are. So colleges are teaching institutions. I mean, many of them also do research, but their main job is just to teach. So you walk into a college, there are all kinds of credentials that you can take, from a longer diploma. I know someone is doing a diploma here. Some even have degrees. So it's not just universities that would provide degrees, but in colleges, these degrees are usually what we call applied degrees. So they're probably more related to certain kinds of job. And then below these, you would get 1 year or under 1 year certificates. Like Cindy works at VCC in continuing studies. A lot of the programs would be either diplomas, like up to 2 years, and then many more would be certificates, right, up to 1 year. And these days, many institutions would offer training that is shorter even than a few months, and we call them micro credentials, like mini, very small credentials, that kind of things. Colleges offer their training in all kinds of mode of learning. You can do it full-time, part-time. You can do it online, or partially online, or partially at the school, especially after pandemic, right? Like all over the world, training is very flexible. Another very unique thing about colleges, if you think about the big universities, I think all of you know UBC, right? So where is UBC? I think that's the right direction. So you know where UBC is, right? So in order to study at UBC, I'm not talking about online, right? If you have to go there, well, you have to go, right, all the way to the UBC campus, which is in Point Grey, like the west side of Vancouver. But that's one UBC. Now, today, UBC also has a campus in the Okanagan, in the interior. But that's pretty much it, right? But these colleges across the country, oh my gosh, they have many campuses. Some would have, like in Nova Scotia, for example, if you ever go there, there's only one college serving all of the province of Nova Scotia, because Nova Scotia is a very small province. So one college, but probably like 15 campuses. Right? So that's kind of that idea, right? So there's a good website. We'll share the PowerPoint after this. There's a very good website called the Canadian Information Centre for International Credentials, or you can do the QR code. You can use this to search for all kinds of institutions as a springboard, right? Because sometimes it's hard to find institutions and their information, particularly if you're new, because you may not even know the name of the college, of the institution, right? So this is a good platform to kind of start. I'm not going to go online, but yeah, you go there. In this case, you can pick colleges, you find a province, and make sure that you filter by selecting public. Otherwise, you'll get a mix of public and private colleges. Thanks, Cindy. So these are some of the benefits. And I would say it's relative, right? But colleges, as I said, they're teaching institutions. So the instructors there, they see themselves more as teachers. Whereas if you go to university, professors see themselves not so much as teachers, but as researchers and scholars, right? Some professors rather that they do not teach, but in colleges, everyone teaches, right? The programs are very much related to industry skills. I think Cindy kind of talked a bit about that. It's true though, I think, comparing Hong Kong with Canada, I think this is a place where more of the jobs would require certification in different forms. And that means you have to take some kind of training. Or if you don't do training, if you already have the skills and experience, you have to go through some kind of process so that you get a license, right, in order to do the job. And sometimes getting to that stage of having a license or a certificate can be a challenge for newcomers because of all kinds of reasons. And I think our colleagues from Vancouver Library may touch up a little bit on these regulated professions. There's so many of them. Another great thing is, because these are teaching institutions, so you get a very small instructor-student ratio. Most of the classes in universities, right, especially the level 1, level 2, like 100, 200, you walk into a big lecture hall, right? One professor, several hundred students. You don't usually get that in a college. It would be like 1 to 25. So from a student perspective, it's a great opportunity to learn. I talk about easier geographical access because of the multiple satellites and campuses and shorter program. And colleges are cheaper than universities, right? Because their programs are shorter. I won't go into the details, but if you just take a quick glance from left to right or right to left, these are program kind of groups, right, from different institutions. You can see there is a huge variety of learning opportunities. And these are programs that you usually do not get in a university. And they're very specific to jobs and certain careers. And you have to go through colleges in order to get the right training. In some institutions, they may have some special programs for newcomers. And I use the word newcomer to include like everyone, right? Not necessarily as an immigrant. So some colleges may have English as an additional language program. And even community organizations like Mosaic would have these programs. Edward is teaching in Link, right? So again, free program, as Cindy says. Some colleges may run what we call bridging programs. Bridging means that you already bring a lot of skills and knowledge from, like in this case, from Hong Kong. So you walk into Canada, you may not need full training. You just need a little bit of training right here and there. And so that's the concept of bridging. So you may take a program and there's some gaps, certain things that you may not know about Canada. And by doing this, then you can move forward, right? You also have credentials that you bring to Canada. And sometimes those credentials need to be evaluated to see if they are equivalent to Canada. A very good example, not for you from Hong Kong, but a lot of people from the Philippines are facing a little bit of challenge because their educational system is very different than Canada. So often they come here, let's say they have a post-secondary degree or diploma, they go through assessment, it's considered a little bit under because they don't have as many years of learning as compared to Canada. So those are little things that sometimes can get tricky for newcomers, especially for longer term employment. And then some programs just help you with exploring your career, learning how to do job search, and so on and so forth. Again, a lot of these programs exist in community organizations. So I think Mosaic has some information here. that it would be great to pick up. And lastly, I want to introduce you to this really important website. It's called Education Planner BC. So this is specific to this province. And there would be similar websites in different provinces across the country. So you go to Education Planner, there are many different ways for you to search for careers, programs that are related to those careers, and you can also look at the specific programs, the requirements and all of those things. And for a lot of the BC institutions, public institutions, you can actually apply through the portal. So this is like a very, very quick overview of public colleges and institutions in Canada. If you have further questions, so are we sharing our work email?
Sure.
It's not here, right? So we'll write it on the board later. So if you want to particularly get in touch with Cindy, because she works in continuing education. So the value of doing continuing education is that you can do it part-time. So you are working, but you need to upgrade your skills. So you don't want to have to choose between work, right, and your study. So you work during the day or evening, and then you do part-time study. So that is the concept of continuing studies. And I know that you're familiar about that from Hong Kong, but here, yeah, it's as important. And I think for a newcomer, that is probably a very good option, so that you don't have to give up your job in order to take a full-time program, right? So that's all I have. I think we have 4 minutes before we hit 11. Questions for me or Cindy? Anything? Other than whether I have a job for you. But yeah, you can ask about our experience. I've been here long. Don't want to talk about that. That makes me feel old. But yeah, between the two of us, yeah, maybe we can answer some questions. Yes? Cantonese or English is fine.
其實你哋嘅 newcomer 點講咧？有咗 PR 之後係咪用多一啲選擇去個 education？ 即係嗰個。
Yeah, so the question is, as a newcomer, do I have more options to education after I have become a permanent resident? And I think the obvious answer is yes. Yeah. I mean, you can always pay, but you also pay way more than a permanent resident, right? So that is the reality. Yes.
我可以補充
Yeah, yeah.
少少宣傳，有啲廣告啊網。
因為今日佢當返工。
咁唔係，我自己諗嘅啫，當返工，我係當義工嘅。咁頭先阿 Michael 講咗個 micro credential 咧，其實我都係嚟咗先識得嘅啫。micro credential 可以幾 micro， 其實我覺得有少少太 micro 啦。
One course can be。
即係 BCC 讀一個課程，譬如係一個叫做 coaching 嘅叫做 Award of Achievement 咧，其實只係45個鐘頭，3個科，3個月已經係讀完，咁你已經有張 cert 係可以寫住有個 Canadian credential 咯。咁其實我負責就係 apply leadership and business management 啦，底下咧係有幾個呢啲咁細嘅 credential， 譬如一個 e-commerce 就好似讀長少少60個鐘 ，coaching 就最少㗎啦45個鐘。咁另外 project management 啦，嗰啲都係講緊幾十個鐘，咁就係夜晚啦，夜晚上或者係星期六上嘅咯。係啦，介紹完畢。
Yes。
我想問個問題就係好多時讀呢啲課程咁，我上呢堂啊，但係其實好多時就係好希望可以建立一啲工作經驗㗎嘛。會唔會通常可以例如話呢啲 course 嗰度會順帶可以俾到一啲可能係實習嘅機會？
Right. So the question is to do with whether there is practicum opportunity in training. So yes, not in a course, but if you in a single course. Okay, so she probably knows better. But usually, in a certificate or a diploma, because these are longer programs, there's usually near the end, there would be time for work experience. It may be called practicum, it may be called work experience, different names perhaps, depending on the nature of the work experience. And in some programs, instructors may connect with employers so that the students can do projects, so that you're actually solving real-life problems in a business, right? So let's say if you're in IT, maybe there are some projects that you would do, and you're literally working with employers, and they may have an IT situation, and you're providing a solution, something like that. Yes, so colleges and institutes are very big on what we call experiential learning. 中文係 I don't know what
學習
即係好 hands-on 嘅
式嘅學習
好 hands-on 嘅 so it's not just coming to the classroom and reading books or learning theories, but your learning has to be applied. So colleges and institutes, they're like applied learning institutions. Universities also have a lot of that today. Like in engineering and even medicine, right? It's a very practical, professional program. But of course, if you take like English literature, then it's not as practical, right? But college programs are usually very practical. Yes, so great question. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes. You're not allowed to ask questions. No.
Echoing this gentleman's questions about practicum.
Yes.
Yeah. For newcomers, I noticed that there are some co-op programs.
Yes.
Where there's a combination or integration between learning and real life practice. Will there be co-op programs which newcomers can take or join?
Yeah, so again, in many colleges and institutes and in universities, a very common type of program is called co-op, meaning cooperative program. And so as Edward says, it's a combination of studying and working. In co-op, when you go to a workplace, you actually get paid. Whereas if you do a practicum in a certificate or diploma program, usually you don't get paid. Because then you may be doing like 2, 3, 4 weeks kind of practicum. But a co-op, you would go out to work for an employer, get paid like for the whole term. So we're talking about 3 to up to 4 months, or sometimes half a year. So again, depending on the co-op program. Universities like SFU, UBC, they have a lot of great co-op programs. But then you're doing a whole degree, right? You're not doing a certificate or diploma.
我想補充少少，不過呢個就係 PR 之後先有嘅，其實冇 say。
No. Wait. As an international student, you can still take those programs. You just have to pay.
No.
Yeah.
我要講呢個係冇 say 嘅XP internship。
Oh, right.
即係俾 XP。I'm talking about the XP internship. They get paid for 500 hours or 50?
I know minimum
50。咁如果參加咗個 program 咧，佢會幫你揾埋個僱主，咁佢係可以應該係3個月內唔知有幾多100個鐘咧係有錢攞嘅。不過呢個就係唔係 Stream A、Stream B 嘅朋友可以參加咯。
Yeah. And it's not coming out of a college, it comes out of a community organization. I don't know whether you would touch on internship at all, but internship in post-secondary is usually a form of learning where usually after you've completed your training and you literally go, and they can be very long. Some internship can be up to a year. But yes, you're working, so you get paid. The Canadian government actually has some internship programs for people to work in the government. But again, a lot of these programs have what we call eligibility requirements. I don't know the Chinese, 即係你符唔符合嗰個資格？咁變咗佢好多個 programs 都係有呢啲嘅，即係你要係 PR 唔係 PR 啊，甚至有啲係 youth 嘅，你唔可以超過30歲。即係加拿大佢有好多呢類型咁樣嘅 program 咧，就俾不同嘅人透過 training, right, so that you can improve yourself, right, in all kinds of ways. Yeah. So I think if you don't remember anything at all, one thing is it's really that. I mean, now that you're in Canada, I expect that all of you here do want to stay in Canada and build your new life here. Do consider continuous learning in whatever form. Like she's taken more certificates than I have done in my whole life, right? Like this is
the same.
I don't have 20, 30 certificates to showcase. So, yeah, but I think Cindy may be an extreme case. But, if you do 3 to 4 in 10 years and 5 years, I think that's great. But pick things that are valuable for yourself, right? But I think Canada is a place where learning is highly valued, and people go back to school even in their 60s and 70s, right? So there's no concern about that. You're never too old to learn, or you're never too young to learn. So if
我有一個補充啊，我其實唔係一個勤力嘅人嚟嘅，我香港都冇讀，嚟到呢度真係太得閒，太多時間，咁就去讀下書咁嘅啫。
No, I think she's just humble. But anyway, yeah, I hope this is useful to some extent. But yeah, we'll put our emails on the board, and you can contact us later. Yeah.
OK，Hello， 大家，我係 Grace 啦。我嘅求職 journey 咧，其實係7月開始嘅，因為我啱啱嚟到即係加拿大，舊年咁都係有幾個月去 settle down 啦。咁就7月叫做正式開始，真係開始揾下工咁樣啦。咁我中間亦都有讀過即係因為揾工你唔會24小時揾工噶嘛。咁我都中間有 take 咗啲譬如 non-profit 關於 fundraising 嘅一啲 course 啦，譬如我喺 Counsellor 去 take 咗一個 course。咁我又見到都有啲工係關於呢啲 fundraising 嘅工，咁我就去申請啦。咁我都有 interview 嘅機會嘅，咁但係就冇請到我啦，即係可能真係唔啱咁樣啦。你揾工又唔會 occupy 所有嘅時間噶嘛，咁咧我就開始去做義工啦。咁我就同一間叫 Richmond Multicultural Community Services， 我就開始去做 volunteering 啦。咁呢間係一間咩機構咧？就係一間喺 Richmond 嘅 settlement agency 嚟嘅。就係幫新移民係去 settle 嘅，即係 offer 好多settlement services 啊、揾工啊、或者學英文啊各諸如此類啦。咁於是咧喺其中有一個 hiring fair 裡面嘅時候咧，我有一個即係而家嘅同事啦，佢就當時就同我講：其實咧我哋呢個機構咧請人喎，咁係請咩位咧？就係請一個叫 Labour Market Counsellor 嘅位。咁我 before 我去 apply 嗰份工嘅時候咧，我就其實做咗一個 information interview 就 with RMCS 嘅一個同事嘅。咁我覺得呢一個咧都幫助好大嘅，即係一份工其實裡面係點咧，要做啲咩，嗰個機構係點咧，即係我係從呢個 information interview 咧就學到好多嘢咯。知道我會問佢，譬如你一日嘅工作大概係做啲咩㗎？呢一個機構係究竟個 culture 係點啊？究竟我哋啲 clients 係啲咩類型嘅人啊？咁我係從呢個 information interview 就已經揾到好多需要知道嘅 information 啦。咁job interview 咧就有2 round 嘅。咁其實啲問題都唔算超級難嘅。咁當然有啲問題佢問到我可能問我做啲咩，我都好 honest 話俾佢聽。其實我有啲嘢我係唔識嘅。咁我覺得最緊要係 be honest 咯，同埋你 show 到俾佢睇，你有個 passion 啦，你係 willing to learn 啦，你會即係好容易，或者你會 willing 去 adapt to 嗰個 culture 咧。咁我覺得呢樣嘢都令到我會容易攞到份工咯嚇。咁同埋咧有一個 point 就係咧嗰個job interview 佢會問你攞 reference 噶嘛，即係佢會問你攞3個 reference 嘅。咁我有2個 reference 咧，都係以前香港嘅同事啦。咁有一個 reference 咧，其實係 RMCS 嘅 volunteer coordinator 嚟嘅。咁佢都肯幫我做呢一個 reference 咯。咁所以其實即係做義工呢樣嘢係令到我係即係令我學咗好多嘢啦。咁同埋間接性令我 build 到一個 network， 亦都可以幫助我去攞到呢一份工咯。咁當然呢份工我開始咗幾個月啦，即係唔係好耐。咁當然都要有啲時間係去適應呢度嘅 Canadian 即係 workplace 啦。咁首先就係個 cultural diversity 啦。咁因為我哋嗰個機構即係我哋係 multicultural 嘅一個機構啦。即係其實好多任何一個 workplace 呢度都係。咁大家要 be aware of 個 cultural diversity 啦，要 respect 個 differences 啦。咁第二咧就係其實呢度做嘢咧係好 work-life balance 嘅。咁以前我做 即係香港當然廣告亦都係做天昏地暗啦，或者我以前做 non-profit 都好，即係都係你 after work 咧，我啲同事啊或者老闆都會繼續係email 你啊 WhatsApp 你啊，係會 expect 你即刻覆噶嘛。咁呢度係冇嘅，呢度係完全你一放咗工咧就真係放咗工噶啦。咁但係中間嗰7-8個鐘喺度做嘢咧，亦都係但係就會好 focus 做嘢咯，即係佢哋真係分得好開嘅 work and life 分得好開嘅。咁另外就係要be proactive 啦，呢度都要做嘢。我覺得佢哋會係認為你要自己去學習，同埋你係要去好 willing 係去問問題咯。即係呢度佢未必會手把手有一個好 full 嘅 training 俾你。你一嚟你就好多 training 你上晒先去做啦。咁呢度係好多係 on the job training 嘅。即係但係你就一邊學，即係一邊做咁樣樣咯。咁所以你個人咧係要好 proactive 去問嘢啦，去揾嘢啦，自己上網去 search 啦，或者係啦，你自己可能即係 continuous learning 都好緊要，即係你要去自己去學咯。即係譬如我知道我自己可能 facilitation 我未必係好識嘅，咁我可能就去 LinkedIn Learning 我就讀咗一個 certificate 咯。咁所以呢啲嘢係其實都係需要嘅喺呢度。咁嚟咗呢，即係關於有啲咩 reflections 咧，即係其實呢一年啦，或者呢幾個月咧做嘢，我都有少少嘅反思嘅。即係其實第一樣嘢就係我諗大家頭先都聽過，即係 how to develop 你嘅 network 咧，同埋你個 supportive community 係好緊要嘅。咁另外就係係咯，要即係 embrace proactivity 啦。去venture beyond comfort 啦，即係我有陣時我自己都會 tend to 好 live 喺一個 comfort zone 裏面嘅，咁但係呢度我就覺得你係要拱自己出去嘗試做多啲唔同嘅嘢。咁另外咧就係 unlearn and learn 啦，即係我即係大家可能都好多嘅工作經驗啦，即係我自己都唔例外，即係我會好多時候會 take 咗一啲我以前學咗嘅嘢，我就喺度apply， 我就覺得一定會係咁。但係其實又唔係㗎喎，咁好多嘢可能你係要去 erase 咗一啲嘢，從零開始喺度再學過咯。咁我覺得呢樣係要緊要，即係要有一個咁嘅心態咯。另外就係 value each experience 啦。咁我覺得係你每一個 experience 都係緊要嘅。whether 你係做義工，你識到一個新朋友，去見工唔成功個 interview，你都有嘢學習到㗎嘛。咁所以我覺得你係每一個 experience 你都係幫到你去下一步嘅，咁所以要 value 每一個 experience 啦。另外就係我覺得需要嘅係要 practice patience 啦 ，celebrate small achievements 啦，同埋prioritize self care。咁呢度咧都好注重係 self care 嘅。最緊要就係另外最尾就係其實坊間真係好多 resources 嘅 Vancouver， 即係包括街坊會啦，包括 library 啦，即係 Debbie 嘅 connections 啊、success 啊、模式啊，即係有好多唔同嘅機構其實都有好多 resources 嘅。咁其實只要你去揾咧，你 reach out 咧，去攞到呢一啲 support 咧，即係咁呢個都好幫到你件事嘅。咁所以我覺得你係最緊要係去 reach out 咯嚇，即係你哋今日嚟咗已經係一個好好嘅 first step。我哋個機構 RMCS 咧都有唔同嘅 program 齊協助啲新移民嘅，即係包括有job talk circle 啦，譬如嚟緊下個禮拜18號就有個叫 multi industry trade talk 啦，咁係我哋揾咗唔同界別嘅 speakers 咧，係去講點樣入行啊，或者佢 share 佢哋嘅 career path 嘅 experience 啦。咁有 IT 啦、engineering 啊、marketing 啊、banking 啊咁樣樣。咁另外16號5月有個 hiring fair 啦，有 mentorship program 啦。咁另外有啲英文嘅conversation classes 咧，呢啲你哋都可以去即係可以去上咯。如果你有興趣嘅話，咁如果你哋係啦，即係有興趣嘅可以contact 翻我。咁我有個我嘅 email 同埋電話啦，同埋我都有啲 leaflets 喺度咁樣樣嘅。咁係咯，可以一陣我哋可以再交流再傾下咁樣咯。嚇，咁我今日分享係咁多。Thank you。
我冇乜準備 slide 得一張嘅啫。呢度有冇劉應廷嘅 fans 啊？咁佢就話俾我聽，喂，今日阿 Jer 出咗個 IG post 喎，佢話恍如隔世，百感交集。佢話阿 Jer 就話佢由荷里活唔係由銅鑼灣時代廣場 busking 到今日。去咗 New York 個 Times Square 下邊影咗個相，佢哋而家 New York 開 concert 嘛，即係對佢嚟講就係一個哇百感交集嗰個 journey 啊，
咁對我嘅 journey 係咩咧？頭先大家都講，我1年前企喺度坐喺你哋嗰度，我冇諗過1年後我企喺呢度同你哋講嘢。我冇成功嘅 formula 話俾大家聽，我只係分享我呢1年嚟go through過嘅一個過程啦嚇。我就1年前嚟啦，咁嚟之前我係做銀行嘅，咁但係唔係大家喺分行見到嗰啲銀行，我做 corporate banking、corporate finance。咁我以前嘅客戶咧就大嘅一啲跨國企業啦，中資又有，外資又有。講得出名，大家會明嘅就係 IKEA 啦、Adidas 啦、JCPenney 啦，呢啲就係我嘅客戶。以前我負責佢中資客戶，我會負責佢全球嘅 banking services 嘅需要。外資嘅公司我需要佢 regional Asia 嘅需要，幫佢哋發債啊、上市啊 whatever。咁呢啲咁嘅工咧嚟到溫哥華之嘅會發生咩事咧？係零嘅嚇。咁但係我嚟之前其實知我有所心理準備，個心理準備嚟之前就係 OK， 我唔會揾得翻我以前嘅工，我唔會揾得翻我以前嘅 title， 我唔會揾得翻我以前嘅錢，我只要揾夠生活就得㗎啦。咁我記得我嚟嘅時候2個禮拜，我喺 Indeed 見到份工，哇 Head of Commercial Banking， 咦差唔多我 profile 喎，試下先 contact 個 headhunter， 咁啊傾下偈，headhunter 哦你點我哋以前都咁，佢話哦第一你嗰嚿錢咧。你得唔得嘅先？我得冇問題，我揾夠生活啫嘛，係咪？哦好，咁我同我 employer 傾下先。石沉大海 ，OK 冇問題。咁個 employer 轉個頭又再出翻個 ad 咯喎，咁我諗下係咪個 headhunter 冇做嘢先？我自己申請今次。繼續哇 dead silence， 好啦。咁我跟住就同一啲喺呢度做銀行嘅朋友傾偈啦嚇。咁佢哋就話咁我其實我好快 realize 我有2個障礙我面對嘅。第一 over qualification， 第二 under qualification。呢個就 exactly 同阿 Cindy opposite 啦。Cindy 話佢以前唔用 LinkedIn 噶嘛，工揾你噶嘛，係咪？而家就要 LinkedIn 啦。我以前啲工都揾我嘅，我唔需要揾工嘅。但係我有 LinkedIn profile， 我有500-600個 connections 嘅。但係我嘅 LinkedIn profile 同你 exact opposite 係咩？就係我嘅 LinkedIn profile 唔單止幫唔到我揾工，係令到我更加揾唔到工。就係因為個 over qualification 嘅問題。如果我用翻我以前嗰個 LinkedIn profile 揾完份工，我啲朋友話：人哋一睇完你嘅 profile， 佢就話唔好玩啦，郭生，你嚟揾我呢度，我呢份工，你唔好玩啦咁樣。OK， 翻嚟。咁但係喂，我唔係喎，唔使，我唔係頭先我嚟之前，我把尺放到咁低㗎啦嘛，係咪？好啦，呢個就係我個 over qualification 嘅障礙。Under qualification 障礙咩？就係如果我今日去銀行揾份工，我行入個分行話，我 teller 都做㗎，冇問題㗎，我唔等錢使，我係為興趣都冇問題嘅。佢就話：好啊，先生，你識唔識開戶口啊？唔識。你識唔識將 check 點樣過㗎？唔識。你點樣喺我 screen 度幫人 check balance 㗎？唔識。呢個就係我嘅 under qualification。我其實我諗由頭到尾，我諗apply 過30-40次到嘅啫。因為我 target 㗎嘛，同埋咧，我大概試幾次之後咧，我知道嗰條路行唔通咧，我就要諗下點解我行唔通先。如果嗰條路行唔通咧，我就要行第二條路。我冇理由個棟牆嗰面，我仲揾個頭不斷咁冚埋去㗎嘛，係嘛？我就會繞過佢，或者行第二條路咯。我宣傳下先啊！我喺 ISSBC 做 link 老師啦嚇。弊公司咧，都係 settlement agency， 同阿毛色啲 friend 啊，等於啊。我哋有個好好嘅 program 叫做 Gateway to Hospitality。Hospitality 嘅意思係酒店業、餐飲業、旅遊業嘅工種嚟嘅。我自己都係報咗啊，我冇話俾佢哋聽，我係 ISS 嘅啦。我自己報咗。個 program 好好嘅。第一件事佢幫你做咩？佢真係揾個人 case manager 對住你。咦，先生你咩 background？ 你想點？你想做啲乜？我有咩幫到你？咁我講晒俾佢聽。跟住咧，佢就話：咁你想做咩工啊？我就中意飲咖啡嘅。我又整到嘢食嘅。我有 certificate 點。但係做廚師太辛苦啦。你唔好揾份廚師嘅工俾我。沖咖啡都得㗎啦。barista 得唔得？得，冇問題。佢即刻同我砌咗好 detail 嘅 training plan。佢砌㗎，唔係我砌㗎。你可以去學拉花，你可以去學點邊度沖咖啡， 跟住咧我哋 ISS 裏邊有啲加拿大職場嘅 training， 你又要去上，你跟住咧就可以去 go to 我去咗 Kwok University 上咗一日 food safety 嘅 certificate， 我又有，佢幫我鋪排晒 OK， 好啦，咁我就去試第二啲行業啦。我有一日同我太太走去 Costco 買嘢，咁咪啱啱喺個 membership counter 有個香港人咁咪好好傾喎，大家傾咗一陣。佢就話：我哋工好好㗎。嗱，你申請咧，記得第一個去 bakery 部啊，嗰度咧有嘢食㗎。翻工忽然間有人整個牛角包，你喂試下啦，試下啦咁。哦 good 咁好，咁啊申請，石沉大海。IKEA 我Cindy 咪話我啲新人砌咗我啲新人最多嘅家私嘅，我搬屋啊嘛。去 IKEA 買咗，哇揼櫃揼到我死為止。好啦，咁IKEA 都好啊，每次我哋去咗好多次IKEA 噶嘛。佢就一拍完車個停車場嘅廣播就係：哎呀，我哋咧就好友善㗎，我哋就要請好多人㗎，你part time 啊 full time 啊，歡迎你啊咁。我每一次都聽到申請，你又唔請我喎，但係個問題係好啦，咁但係我係舊年4月中嚟㗎嘛，啱啱好1年1週年，我5月喺度開始做義工，咁我最高峰做4份義工。RMCS 啦 ，RMCS 咧，因為有一個細 agency 咧，其實就好似啲細公司，你乜都要，乜都做得嘅，佢冇固定嘅一個工種。咁我跟住去中橋啦 ，Success， 我去我公司 ISS 啦做義工。咁佢哋大啊嘛，咁佢就會話：你嚟做義工，唔該淨係同我做某一樣嘢嘅啫。咁佢兩個咧就需要我。郭生，你識國語喎，你識廣東話喎，你喺國內香港生活過，你又識英文喎。我哋嘅 link 班咧，我需要 teaching assistant 啊，你啱啱好幫到我。咁我第4份義工係咩咧？就係聖誕樹。做義工嘅過程其實你會幫你融入個社會，同埋你所謂 networking 識多啲唔同 background 嘅人。講重點啦，講咁多嘢，點解我成為一個 link instructor 咧？就係我喺 ISS 做義工嘅時候，咁啊同有啲 break 嘅時候，同佢哋啲同事傾偈啦。佢就話：喂 Edward 你做義工點？我話幾好喎。我又 handle 得到啲英文嗰個部分。咁嗰啲學生全部係新移民嚟㗎嘛，即係有國內有中東有 Ukraine 嗰啲人。咁我話其實我有一樣嘢我覺得好好嘅就係咩啊？佢哋嘅故仔咪我個故仔咯。Their stories are my stories。大家都係新移民嘛，佢碰到個問題我都見到㗎，即係大家就業啦嚇，當然可能有分別啦嚇，即係大家個背景啊、國籍啊唔同啦。咁但係我就覺得，喂，我幫佢嗰樣嘢，我攞到啲 positive energy， 我有 purpose of life。咁跟住個同事就，喂，咁你不如做 instructor 咯。咁我就翻去上齊晒我公司啊、模式啊、中橋啊，總之有 link program 嗰啲工嘅咧，就睇下。其實做一個 link program，佢個 job post 要啲咩人嘅，要啲咩條件？咁而我就揾埋我嗰啲 instructor，所謂我而家啲老細就話：喂，其實啲 industry 點嘅啫？究竟點樣入行嘅啫？我需要做啲咩？其實就一個 informational interview 嚟。跟住就成為咗呢個老師，而家就教緊新移民英文。我嘅除咗話揾到份工之外，對我嘅得着就係 purpose of life。咁喺我呢度有個部分叫 Canadian context。其實我少少嘅 observation 喺我過去呢1年揾工過程嘅 observation， 加拿大同香港嘅分別。第一，識人好過識字呢句説話，大家一定聽過㗎啦，係咪？唔需要解釋㗎啦。對我嚟講，識人當然緊要啦，或者對大家人識人好緊要 ，personal networking 好緊要。但係我認為咧，識人同識字咧係 equally important。其實頭先 Cindy、Michael 其他speaker 都講過，加拿大好講 certification 㗎嘛。你冇識字嗰 part， 你識人都冇用。某啲情況，譬如我講我而家做 link 嘅 instructor， 翻工都翻咗3個堂啦，3個 courses 嘅 training， 即係3個 certification 啦應該話。咁我去學做老師嗰個過程嗰個課程叫 TESOL Canada 啊嘛，其實就係一個 teaching English as second language 嘅一個 program 啊嘛，成個加拿大都用得着嘅，即係話我喺BC 省我可以教英文，有呢個cert 係用嘅，我去到 AB 省其他省都係用得翻。但係同我同班嘅同學有啲係 native speaker 嚟㗎，英文好過我㗎，佢揾唔到 link 工，咪爭地啲 certificate。大家明白我意思嘛？即係話 雖然我哋有個 disadvantage 就係我可能我 personal network 唔夠，但係如果你喺嗰個 certification 識字嗰個部分補足翻，搭少少識人嗰個部分，其實係有用嘅。我又發覺加拿大係唔需要秘撈嘅喎，你係明撈嘅喎。點 case in point？ 我頭先咪講我上咗3個課程嘅，其中一個課程咧叫 PBLA，Portfolio Based Learning Assessment， 其實係一個 assess 學生嘅一個技巧嘅一個 certification。咁咧公司就 send 咗我去讀啦，但係 train 嗰個咧係我老細嚟嘅喎。咁點解咧？就係我老細其實佢就係一個 certified 嘅 trainer for 呢一嚿嘢嘅。咁即係話咩咧？出邊好多課程，我老闆咧就係嗰個課程嘅導師，而呢個課程咧係給全個加拿大人都會可以上。因為我頭先咪講過呢個樣嘢係即係 link program 係一個 federal government 俾錢嘅嘢，即係全國噶嘛。好啦，公司就 send 我去，因為你去讀嗰個 course。So happy 個 trainer 係我老細嚟嘅喎。咁我老細仲分好似頭先阿 Grace 話，就係呢度啲嘢分得好清噶嘛。我老細就嗱，因為你而家咧就係我嗰個課程學生，請你星期1至5咧就唔好 send 嚟問我喎，因為我同你有 conflict of interest。你有咩唔該有嘢就唔該問下邊個得啦。你有嘢問我啦，你 send 俾我啦，我星期6答你，因為係佢 part of 佢呢份正職嘅工作啊嘛，明嘛？好啦，咁呢個就係又幾好喎。原來你 train 自己一個 team member 咧，有額外一份錢喎，甚至乎我 observe 到呢度好鼓勵或者好接受大家係會有 multiple jobs 嘅。我有一次唔知喺 LinkedIn 點樣見到有個人幫嗰間機構打工，佢自己又開咗間公司，唔知做 marketing 定乜嘅，跟住咧咁就寫翻佢啲 client list 咯。個 client 有佢公司喎，即係話我就有份正職做緊 marketing。不過我公司又需要 vendor， 我又係個 vendor 喎，我個 client 就係我公司，咁你咪攞2份錢咯，又幾好喎呢樣嘢 ，right？ 所以我會好 encourage 大家咧，即係 echo 翻頭先阿 Michael Cindy even Library 佢哋講，其實呢度好多 training 係需要嘅，而我覺得好嘅最好係咩？就係啲譬如 micro credential 啲 short courses。即係短時間唔需要花好多學費，你學幾樣嘢其實係有幫助嘅。所以對我嚟講就係，我要不斷要學一啲新嘢，甚至乎我做幾份鐘工就啱啦。因為我唔知我呢份工或者我呢個工種可以做幾耐。加拿大呢個環境咧，我覺得仲適合過香港喎。香港個文化你都仲係一份工有翻工冇放工㗎嘛，夜晚又覆緊WhatsApp，我以前都係啦。加上就頭先咪講咯，你 train 人，你老細話你係糧包咗㗎啦嘛，咁點會你仲多份開多間公司話收翻我錢㗎？係咪？其實你做多幾份嘢咧，你反為我從我嘅角度，你個出路仲多咗喎，因為個世界不斷轉緊啊嘛，係嘛？咁呢個就我又嚟咗1年之後 observe 到，加拿大喺呢件事 environment 又幾好喎。咁加上頭先講話，你直情係你打5份工都冇人理你，大家歡迎你，老闆仲會問你，你出邊有冇第二啲工啊 Edward 你翻呢個時段 OK 嘅嗬，即係星期1、2得嘅嗬，即係因為你有我唔知你星期3、4、5係咪有第二啲工噶嘛？佢就會 make sure 你係翻到噶嘛，嗰段時間唔阻你噶嘛，係咪啊？咁樣我得冇問題。我諗我總結係，我頭先講咗一堆嘢，如果大家組織唔嚟唔緊要。但係我覺得如果有一樣嘢，唯一一樣你今日可以攞得走嘅 ，the only thing you can take home right now, today from me， 就係如果個50幾歲嘅大叔都轉到仍有20幾30年嘅銀行做咗英文老師，你哋一定得。即係如果if this is the only point you can take away today from this event from me, is that if I can transform myself as a 20+ years banking professional to become a link instructor, any one of you can do the same transformation from whatever profession or industry that you spend many years in before coming to Canada. This is my only conclusion, or 可能係結尾嘅一個總結啦，好嘛？Thank you.